Thomas, welcome to Chamber Chat. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's start out by you introducing yourself and the organization you represent.
Sure. Well, mini nutahi wichasha makiapi. My name is Thomas Benjoe. I'm actually a partner with One Hoop Advisory. So we're a new Indigenous consulting firm based out of Treaty 4 territory here in Regina.
And when you say new, it's relatively new, right?
Yeah, very new. So we're a little over 4 months into the role. So yeah, in the organization.
And it's often been called the Dream Team. Like, tell us about who your partners are.
Yeah, so I have, Cadmus Delorme, former chief of Cowsis First Nation, and Jada Yee, he's joined as well. But we've all been friends since university, and we've all went to the business school,
right,
and spent a great deal of time working in some of the student politics as well when we were there. And then we all went our separate ways, followed our career paths. I took banking and Indigenous economic development.
Right.
Jada continued in his operations role with government and then other leadership roles from there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Cadmus went on and became chief of his community. So nice for us to come back together now. We all have these fantastic experiences, and we've moved mountains in our respective areas, and now we're able to come back and bring that experience to this new consulting company.
Exactly, and that's truly what it is a consulting company. Tell me the vision of One Hoop.
Yeah, so we're when we thought about doing this work, it's we've always taken a very different approach to how we look at opportunities in the market or issues that we're dealing with. And so a lot of times when we're faced with coming up with solutions to a problem, a lot of times we tend to just allow non-Indigenous organizations to make those decisions for us.
Right.
Or we sit and we wait and we hope that they have our best interest in mind. We've always, in our respective careers, have always taken the approach of, well, what would our actual position be? What would we do?
Right.
How would we do it different? How do we see things differently? And how would we approach this in a way that hasn't been approached before? And so when we do that, we're able to deepen our relationships with folks in whatever industry it may be that we're looking to solve the issue. We're going to understand the connections, whether that's that industry with another industry, with government, with community, understanding all of these connection points that are important for understanding how we can actually move something forward. And then we always base our discussion in truth and in trying to build a partnership more so, and so that we're more open to one another's understanding. And from there, we're able to better understand what the actual issues are. Because everyone comes to you and they'll say, well, this is my problem. I need you to solve it. But if you dig a little deeper and you have that relationship, you build that partnership with the organization, we're actually able to understand what the true root of the problem is. And that's where, that partnership relationship really shines through, and that, okay, we got to solve all of these other things first before we solve this issue. And that's how we're going to approach helping an organization, and we're going to come to them with what would be our solution as from an Indigenous lens.
Yes.
And we can debate and we can go through and have uncomfortable conversations, but we know that we're always doing it with the best intent, with the making sure that we're always doing things in a good way. And I think that's what a lot of organizations have appreciated in our approach today, and in the work we've done in the past as individuals.
And I think that needs to be said. I mean, your group are professionals, right? And you understand that Canadians European descents, like I am, we need to be educated, right?
Yeah.
And part of what you do is truly education, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just understanding the non-Indigenous perspective when we're
Right.
looking at the issue. We understand the Indigenous perspective on what reality is and how decisions are made and how or what our value systems are. So that perception, I guess, in how we come together and solve issues is very different.
Yes.
So I think, yeah, again, back to, the clients that we're working with right now, all very appreciative of the work we've been able to do together and the understanding and the learning that's been able to come out of that relationship building.
Thomas, I recently saw Cadmus speak in Saskatoon, and he talked about economic reconciliation. Can you explain that term to us?
Yeah, so when I think about economic reconciliation, so we take a step back, we look at truth first, right?
Right.
When we think about the truth, well, what is our truth? What's the truth of our economy here? We'll take Saskatchewan as a lens
Okay,
in our
please.
economy. So if we're looking at Saskatchewan and we look at our economic history, a lot of our First Nations were not able to participate effectively.
Right.
There was policy that stopped us from participating. We had fantastic agricultural strengths in our communities at one point in time. But because of limitations from Indian agents, limitations from policy,
Right.
it created barriers for us to be successful, and a lot of our communities suffered at the extent of these policies from being able to actively participate, even though they were doing a fantastic
Yes.
job at one point. Initially, once treaty was signed, that sense of being able to continue to see that success was a bit of a hindrance for our non-Indigenous neighbors who didn't want to continue to support Indigenous aspirations in agriculture. And so now,
Right.
that's part of our history. We have to, recognize that and realize that that's, why some of our communities were not participating in the economy. And now you sort of fast forward to, late 1900s, 1970s, 80s, 90s, we're starting to see policies change where our community members are able to now come off reserve and be able to participate in the economy. Again, there was policies that stopped certain individuals from pursuing post-secondary education, for instance. You had to give up your status in order for you to actually go and pursue post-secondary education.
Wow.
So you think about those kind of barriers that are
Yeah.
put on individuals, but they want to be able to move their families forward. And we think about our time spent with our veterans. Our
Right.
veterans were a key part of
Yes.
our economics, actually. So because they volunteered and they were never forced to go to war, they volunteered their time to go and serve for their livelihood as well. And in that process, I mean, when they came back home, again, not treated fairly, not given
Right.
the same provisions as other veterans, but they began fighting for rights. Well, we should be given the same economic opportunities as well.
Right.
That's where some of these discussions began. And so you start to see this change in policy over time where not only was there treaty rights to be fought, but there's also just basic human rights to be fought, to be given equal opportunity. And over time, you start to see policies change. You see new commitments from governments, from resource sectors saying,
Right.
we're going to commit to procurement policies.
I was just going to say, yeah.
We're going to create all of these new opportunities for Indigenous people to participate and try to catch up to what's happening in our economy today. And so when we think about that truth and where our relationship came from, and what policy has done to having First Nations actively participate in the economy, we now got to think about, okay, we understand what those issues are. Now it's time to, how do we fix this?
Right.
How do we create better opportunity? How do we invest? And so you see governments committed to funding to help support economic activities. You see programs and policies for participation. But we also need to be able to build that within our families. And so when we think about economic reconciliation and the work that has to happen within our families, well, we got to go and build businesses ourselves as parents to pass down to our kids,
Exactly.
to give them that opportunity or that exposure to participating in business and economics. And we need our institutions to be aligned with that. You know, all of these things in community have to, there's a recipe that has to
Right.
work well in order for that to happen effectively. And so as we're navigating as one hoop in economic reconciliation, you know, and what that means for us is, well, let's challenge some of the early thought that would have been policy that was originally created, and with the best intents,
Of course.
of trying to create participation. But how do we change it for the better? How do we actually put an Indigenous lens on some of that policy change? How do we make sure that we actually understand what's going to be good for our not only community-owned businesses, but Indigenous entrepreneur-owned businesses for the long term? And so let's change some of that. Let's change the rules a bit so that it makes it easier for Indigenous people to actively participate in our economy. So that's the work we're doing as One Hoop is we're trying to fix those systems, trying to fix those policies so that we can enhance opportunity. But we're also working with community. We're
Right.
working with nations right now, getting them investment ready, making sure that they can actively participate either alongside us with some of our economic aspirations, or that we're able to create new opportunities for them to invest and participate effectively in our economy. So all of these things are important for us to be able to build, you know, a real economic solution. So when I think about all this work I've been doing over the years in the Saskatchewan economy,
Yeah.
you know, I always tell folks, I said, the reason why I volunteer my time and I spend so much time focused on these things, these bigger issues, it's because I want to be able to say that Saskatchewan got it right.
Right.
That at least at home, I could say we got it right here, and that hopefully we influence other, you know, parts of our country to say, well, if Saskatchewan got it right, what are they doing? How can we do better? How can we participate? So I think about those things all the time, and so this work is very important for us to be focused on, and hopefully, you know, create those changes for the better over the long term.
I love your optimism, because I think that speaks volumes of your group, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about moving forward and understanding that we all are treaty people in that sense, right? And so how do chamber members, Thomas, how do they participate in this? What would you advise a chamber member?
So, you know, I had the pleasure of, you know, being the chair of the Sask Chamber.
Yes.
For a one-year term, and served on the Sask Chamber for a number of years. And, you know, one of the fantastic things that I was very proud of that you know, we were committed to, and was our Indigenous Engagement Charter, and, you know,
Right.
being the first chamber in Canada to actually commit to a charter. And I think, you know, the tools that were created there were not just meant for just the Sask Chamber membership, but it was meant for all Saskatchewan business.
Right.
And in some cases, if you look at like the Orange Shirt Day events, there's always fantastic communication that goes out. We actually had so many other businesses outside of Saskatchewan utilizing the resources that were created for their own businesses to think about things that they could do within their respective economies. So I think that's, you know, fantastic collaboration. But when I think about, our chamber members here, what the one of the things that we actually faced when we were going through this process was, we have big corporate.
Right.
Big corporate has big dollars. They have Indigenous engagement teams. They could afford staff. They could afford. They have their foundations. They can afford to put dollars towards community spend. You have your medium-sized enterprises that they have some dollars as well available to do these efforts, and then you have your small business. And when we had this discussion around the charter, it wasn't so much to say thou shall do this
Yes.
and do that. It was more so, what is your organization doing? Take a step back. Don't just think about trying to do everything that all the big guys are doing. Think about the little meaningful things that you can do within your organization. Can you spend with an Indigenous business?
Yeah.
How do you look at your supply chain, and is there an Indigenous supplier that you can buy from? That's one act of economic reconciliation.
Exactly.
How are you educating yourself? Yourself as the business owner, your team, your staff. How are you teaching them about economic reconciliation or just reconciliation in general? Can you, what does employment look like for the big guys? They have the dollars, they can recruit. They could be committed to post-secondary institutions, but even the small players can take a look in the market and say, how can I be more attractive to an Indigenous candidate that wants to work within my organization? How do I build an environment that's comfortable for an Indigenous person to come and work for me? Those are all things that chamber members can do and think about, or their activity in the community. Go and participate in some of our events. Just and really in the community side of things, it's more community and family. So what are you doing in community? What are you doing to bring your family along with you, so that your family can experience those things in the Indigenous community as well, so that you're being seen as a leader for your children, or in some cases grandchildren.
Yep. Thank you.
To come and participate and make sure that as they're growing up, that they feel comfortable.
That's
this
right.
Isn't something that just Indigenous people are doing this over here. That they actually feel comfortable in saying, well, Mom, Dad, I would love to go to a powwow this weekend. My friends are all talking about it. Having those kind of conversations, that's when you start to know that things are really starting to shift, because just that sense of comfortability in our young people, and I think will be a telling tale of, are we doing the right things as a community? So I think those are things that chamber members can absolutely do.
I have a good friend. His name is Gillis Lavallee. You know him, and he talked to when we were sitting together on the airport authority board, talking about being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And so he had me read the Clearing the Plains, which is a book that I believe you recommend.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy read. Like, it's an easy read, but it hurts, right?
Yeah.
But it's part of that education process. So in our companies, we've been trying to do that exactly.
Right.
Thomas is teach our people and then teach our families, and I believe that that's important. What you said there really hits home in terms of what members can do.
Yeah, and it's little things. I think about the businesses that I've been able to create over the years,
Right.
and I think about some of the the activities that we created for our non-Indigenous staff, because they felt that it was our responsibility to make sure that they had some pride in working for an Indigenous organization, and so we had fantastic managers that went the extra mile, and we made sure that we're equipped with the right information. But they would go out and they would work with their staff, and whether that's a lunch talk or a morning talk, they would encourage staff members to go and learn something.
Yes.
Learn something and bring that back to the group. When you get somebody to go out and learn something and re-share it, it sticks with them a little longer.
It comes
and
entrenched.
And so what we've seen over time, and some of the feedback we are getting from some of our customers was, you guys just took over this contract. You have these employees that were working for this other company. They now work for you. These are the same people doing the same job, but what are you guys doing so differently in that they're more engaged? They are, we're not having as, many issues with their performance on site. What are you guys doing differently? And we said, well, we gave them purpose. They have a sense of purpose now,
Right.
because the work that they're doing, they understand that the work that they're doing is helping our communities, the economic opportunity. So doing your 9 to 5 task today, that's an economic opportunity that's coming back to some of our communities. And so they believe in that. And so when they show up for work the next day,
Right.
it's a different perspective. I'm now not just working to make a buck, I'm working to make a buck for my family,
Yes.
but I'm working to make a buck for these communities that own us, that have an ownership stake in this company. So it's a sense of pride and purpose that's given to staff. So when you think about that and you think about your organization, and when we commit to these types of efforts about just being better community-minded individuals, I think it gives people a tremendous sense of purpose in how they engage in community.
Thomas, you're not going to believe this, but we've already been 20 minutes. So what I want to do, though, is I want to spend 1 minute on just picking up on the community piece.
Sure.
Because you are a believer in contributing to the community. I know you have a fantastic family. I follow you on Instagram. I know you're busy with your family. Just talk to me a little bit about how important that is to you.
Well, it's important for me to demonstrate the commitment to community with and have my family be involved.
Right.
So we're involved in a number of different things at all times. We're volunteering. We're always trying to show the kids that it's important to be able to give your time, because that's some of the most valuable things that
Yes.
you can give is time. And it's not, we do get the opportunity to share $1 sometimes. We have our family scholarship, and but just I see it in them, because they whenever they see someone in need, we know that it's having a tremendous effect on them, because it bothers them.
Yeah.
And they have a bit of their own call to action to, well, what can I do? What can I do to help? And I think that's just a fantastic way of building young human beings.
Yes.
Is, making sure that they are respective of what's going on around them, and how they can help, and how they can associate with the work that they're going to do in their career and the livelihood they're going to create, but not forget about our family or our friends in the community, that they can also help. So those go hand in hand. That's just part of our value system as Indigenous people, and
exactly.
it's the value system that we ingrain in our children, and so it's just important for us to be able to do that.
Thomas, it makes for better people. It makes for a better community, better province, better country, and you're a big part of that. So honored to absolutely have you as part of Chamber Chat today. Thank you so much for coming
appreciate
in.
it.
All
Thanks for
right,
having
all
me.
the best.
All right, take care.
Chamber Chats is produced bi-weekly by Skycron as a service to the Regina business community. We produce many series, including the television series Go Nitro for NBC Sports, CBS, and Fox, as well as corporate videos, events, and live streams, all right here in Saskatchewan. We can do the same for you. If you have a video project for your organization, call us at 306-720-0097. And let's get started on your next project.